Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Don't Praise the Machine. This is episode number 162. My name is Alexander Holland. I'm sat in a beautiful and sunny Berlin, Germany, and as always, just down below me in Melbourne, Australia, as he is every single week. It's the number one tenured professor of podcasting. He's got to be the one called
John Maloney. Hi, everyone.
And John Maloney, I've got a really funny little story to tell you about some real good reach out hygiene IRL. Are you ready to hear about this? Give me a yes if you're ready for that.
Yes.
Anyone who's not familiar with reach out hygiene is a little thing that we came up with on the show a few months ago, and it's when you have a person, when we spoke about it was on social media. Maybe they're a musician, maybe they're a comedian. You like their work. Maybe they don't have a huge audience like Taylor Swift. They got a small audience. Maybe on Spotify they're getting 1,000 listeners a week, but you've been recommended one of their songs and you absolutely love it. So what you do is you find them on social media and you want to send them an appropriate message to communicate your appreciation for their art, for their creativity. It just makes the world a better place. But also, you don't want to be too creepy and weird. It's a balance. It's a dance. So we came up with Reach Out Hygiene, and that's when you send somebody a message. The key, keep it short, keep it sweet, and do not expect anything in return. Just say, hey, man, I've been served your song on Spotify and I can't stop listening to it. Absolutely love this about it and this about it. I've been listening to it in this environment and it's really made me feel this. Just want to let you know that. Have a great day. That's reach out hygiene. And typically what will happen is the person, in my experience, the person will say, oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. You know, maybe nobody's ever told me that about the song. That's how I felt about the song. That's what I was trying to communicate. And this has been my experience when that's happened.
Then you reply, do you want to hang out socially as friends?
That's why we need reach out hygiene. Is you don't when they say thank you so much, I really appreciate it. Then anti reach out hygiene. What's the opposite of hygiene, John?
Yeah, reach out. What is the opposite of hygiene? That's a great reach out filth.
Yeah, I was going to say filth too. Reach out. Reach out dirt. Reach out dirty. You don't want to reach out dirty.
No, you don't want a dirty reach out where you say to the person, I just got your message. I'm at home with a couple of beers. Friend just cancelled on me. Do you want to come over and just chat about your work? And they go, no thanks. And then they block you.
Exactly.
And you think, oh man, I reached out dirty.
But I like your song. Where do you live? I like you.
You get all baby reindeer up in them.
Yeah, exactly. I like you. I like your funny TikToks. I know where you live.
Those TikToks were specifically about me, weren't they? I know. You can tell me. It's fine.
I like that one TikTok that you made talk to me directly in my brain through telepathy. I liked that about you. And look, I've taken a photograph of your front door.
Have you seen that clip? We might have even discussed it on the show where John Lennon gets accosted by some guy that's been sleeping on his lawn.
Yes.
I like that clip.
Just describe that to people, John, because that's in the world of reach. Yeah. That's the opposite of reach out hygiene, because that person I think was like mad and on acid or something. But just explain to the viewers what that circumstance is. But John Lennon's
response is kind of a good example of being reached out to and responding hygienically, where he's living in this, beautiful palatial house because he's John Lennon. Yoko Ono's there as well. So this would be post-Beatles probably, because she and he got together in 1969 and she broke up the Beatles.
Yeah.
And so living in the States, and I think it's part of a documentary that was made about him at the time. And it shows this interesting interaction that he's having with a young guy, looks very spaced out as though he's tripping and kind of looks glassy-eyed and not in touch with reality. And he is standing cautiously talking to John about his songs. And basically what he's saying is, I really had the feeling that if I could just meet you, everything would make sense. It would all fall into place.
Yeah.
And, when you wrote these lyrics, are you sure you weren't talking about anyone in particular?
Yeah.
Are you sure you weren't talking about this? And
About
John's
me,
going,
I think, wasn't it?
yeah, about me. And John's going,
Fuck.
no, mate, this is all just nonsense. I thought the words sounded good together, so I just put them together. And maybe if it's about anything, sometimes it's about Yoko and me, but often it's just kind of just a song that I thought off the top of my head. And then the guy sort of looks like he's not sure, but he's sort of, placated and can't really say much back to that. And then John says, are you hungry? And he says, yeah, because he's been sleeping on John's lawn for several days.
Yeah.
And so John says, all right, let's get him something to eat. The next scene is just them sitting at a table with this weird man, and he's kind of slowly making his way through a roast dinner.
Yeah.
And I quite like that. Now, what he's done is definitely in the don't do what bad reach out Johnny does.
And thankfully, that was the last time that John Lennon ever had an issue with an obsessive, dangerous weirdo.
It's true. I mean, in retrospect, John probably was a little bit too forgiving of the crazy fans and allowed them to get a bit too close to him. But that's easy to say with the benefit of hindsight. And Yoko hasn't had any problems because nobody really likes her, so it's not been an issue. Yeah, that's right.
Nobody likes her enough
So
to become obsessed with her.
Yeah, she is. I looked this up the other day for some reason, or maybe I saw something about her. She is 91 now.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing.
Fuck.
Yeah. Yep. She still hasn't gotten up from that bed and it's a bit like those Japanese soldiers that they found years after the war running around the jungle. Nobody's let her know that the Vietnam War's ended.
Nobody's let her know that John died. She said, "Oh, he just went to get some milk from the fridge. He'll be back soon."
Yeah,
he just went to get a packet. Of cigarettes.
She's going, what is President Johnson saying about my bed? And her grandchildren are just like, it's really working. It's really making some waves.
So Reach Out Hygiene John IRL this week.
Yeah.
I was going to meet a friend. I got off the train at Warschauer Strasse, a very famous U-Bahn station and street in Berlin, Germany. And I spotted out the corner of my eye a man whose TikToks I have been really loving for the last couple of months. He is a Scottish tour guide in Berlin, and he makes these great little videos about places in the city that have historical relevance. And it's absolutely my kind of thing, because he'll say, this is where this interesting thing happened to do with the Berlin Wall. Here's a really interesting building where Berlin's queer community set up camp in 1990. Here's where something really interesting happened during the 1920s. And they're great. And I spotted him, and he was with a group of young people, so probably teenagers. So he must do tour guiding for school groups as well, because it looked like some school kids that he was showing around. Yeah. And I could tell also that he was trying to... He was obviously in control of he was responsible for the kids as well. So he's trying to make sure that he's got these 10, 15-year-olds with him. And so he's looking around, trying to make sure everyone's with him. And so I could tell that it wasn't, it wasn't right to stop and have a long chat.
It wasn't time to go up. Yeah.
But also, I know that his videos don't get a huge amount of likes and follows because, it's fairly niche, niche Berlin history. And I said to myself, you got to do the right thing. Don't just walk past. So I walked up behind him and I put my hand on just gently on his shoulder. I said, excuse me, mate.
On the small of his back.
On the small of his back. I said, excuse me, mate. And he was sort of shocked. And Warschauer Strasse, there's quite a lot of activity around there. So he may have assumed that I was a person asking for money or something weird. And he was probably on the defensive because he's minding all of these kids. And so,
Yeah.
he said, yes, mate. And I was like, I said, you're the guy that does the history videos on TikTok. And he went, yeah, that's me. I said, man, I just want to tell you, I absolutely love those videos. I've watched loads of them. I've lived in the city for 10 years and I love the history of the city. And I always love watching your videos. Keep it up. I didn't even let him, I just said, keep it up. Love doing them. Keep putting them out. And you could see his expression kind of go from who the fuck is this person talking to me while I'm trying to tour these kids. It all sort of relaxed and a big smile came across his face. He said, thanks, mate. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot for that. And then he smiled and I said, nice. You have a great day. And I just walked off. That was it.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's
And
great.
I hope that let him know that there are people out there that think that he's making real good TikTok videos.
Yeah. I don't want to interrupt the momentum of the show, but I watched a video the other day on YouTube, a clip of a great bit of reach out hygiene involving British actor Bill Nighy and a cyclist.
Okay.
And maybe if I just show it to you and we can put it on the podcast. What do you think about that? Hang on. Let me just see if I can find
depends.
It.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really have to worry about getting monetized yet, so that's fine. Once we start actually getting money from YouTube, John, we'll have to be a bit more careful about clips. But at the moment, it doesn't really matter.
All right, I'm gonna just send it to you on WhatsApp now, and maybe for anyone who doesn't have the benefit of the visual medium at the time they're listening, I'll take them through it once you've had a chance to watch it.
Okay, I'm looking now.
I needed the rest.
I thought that when I saw you stop.
Have a great day, fella.
That's great.
Yeah. It's sweet, isn't it? And I think part of what makes it sweet and why I remembered it is so basically what happens is this guy is cycling and he's got his little cycle cam at the front of his bike.
Yeah.
He's probably, I imagine he must be in London, and he pulls up at a pedestrian crossing, and you can see the actor Bill Nighy crossing the street, and he says, "Thanks for stopping." And the cyclist said, "I needed the rest," kind of self-deprecatingly, like I wasn't stopping to be polite, I was just tired. And then Nighy says, "I thought that when I saw you were sitting there." And then he just says, "Have a great day, fella."
Yeah.
And it's the way he talks to him indicates, "I know who you are, and I wish you the best." But he doesn't kind of go, "Oh my God, you Bill Nighy," get off his bike and run at him. And it's just a sweet little interaction.
Yeah. And then
similarly, you didn't try to prolong the interaction by being like, "Do you want to know about my life, please?" And then you just let the guy go.
And then the extended version of that video, Bill Nighy comes back to the guy and just does one of his lines from Love Actually, where he just stares the cyclist directly in the eye and goes, "It's a terrible, terrible mistake, Chubbs, but you turn out to be the fucking love of my life," which is what Bill Nighy says to his manager at the end of Love Actually. That's very sweet. That's excellent reach out hygiene from the celebrity himself. That's like a reverse reach out hygiene where
exactly.
Where
the guy whose name is Cycle Gaz, his name is.
Yeah.
Cycle Gaz just says, "Have a great day, fella." Waves at Bill Nighy. Yeah, it's cute. Well done on that bit of reach out hygiene.
Yeah. So I just again encourage anyone who sees somebody whose work you appreciate. Think about. You do have to take into one of the difficult things about reach out hygiene is you have to take into account the level of celebrity that the person has, because if that Scottish tour guide was Harry Styles, then my reach out hygiene will not help Harry. he won't appreciate that.
I've heard your music, and he'll go like, "Yeah, okay, thanks."
Are you are you that guy from song called Same As It Was? I like that song. It's a song I really like. He's going to go, oh, thank you so much. Oh,
Yeah,
nobody's ever said that to me. Oh, my
you
God.
make it. Sometimes I wonder, I'm getting any traction, and it just makes it all worthwhile.
And
I had a little bit of reverse reach out hygiene recently, where I stopped off at some relatives on the way to the country, and my cousin was there. Shout out to Kyle if you're listening. And Kyle said to me, "Hey, it's the #1 tenured professor of podcasting."
Yeah.
And I said, "Kyle, in real life, I'm just known as John. Thank you. This is not appropriate."
We'll know that we've made it when people approaching us and telling us that they appreciate the podcast becomes very irritating, and we become very, very crotchety and angry. That's how we'll know really when we become Ellen DeGeneres of podcasting, where people come up and say,
Yeah.
"Oh, that splag you told really changed my life," and I'll go, "Fucking get the fuck away from me!
Just trying to get a coffee, mate.
I'm
Thanks.
just trying to. I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here with my kids. Get away from me."
Getting papped as
And I
you
won't-
leave your apartment.
Just me, and I won't have any kids. I've just gone mad. Can't you see I'm with my kids? Get away from me! Just completely alone.
like that guy in the meme where he imagines getting revenge on someone, and then at the end of the video, he's just kind of writhing on the ground.
Oh my God, that's
Love
the best.
that.
That's the
Love
best.
that.
That's the best. That one. Fucking love that guy. I follow him. I forget his name. He's got like a Spanish name. He's one of my favorite.
Yeah.
I would definitely tell him
So
that I love this.
dark.
I would definitely love that.
Yeah.
I would love to tell him in real life that I loved his stuff. Are you ready for me to talk about something that's popped up this week and made me think this is very DPTM? This is a Schlag burger with the lot. Are you ready for this? Can you
we
handle
love
this? Are you ready for
those.
this? I'm going to just do sales techniques with you, John, on the podcast where I go, is it okay, John, if I talk about that today? And then you go,
Yes.
and then you
I go, actually, I've got a meeting. And you go, it's all right. I'll only be a minute. And then, I've been listening to lots of Andy Elliott. So I get a lot of his sales techniques.
Guys, look up Andy Elliott.
Yeah.
Anybody who doesn't know Andy Elliott, you've probably come across him on the Instagrams. But if you're trying to improve your aggressive mental sales techniques, you are going to love. We should do a whole podcast on Andy Elliott. This week,
Totally.
John, I saw an image and it made me real think we are about to stop valuing media in a way that I don't really think people are aware of, or perhaps haven't really considered just how quickly something that a couple of years ago would have been very valuable to us all is about to become completely worthless. And what made me think of this was I saw a picture this week that was AI generated, but it looked virtually identical to a picture that I saw in a meme about, maybe it's 10 years old, the meme.
Right.
And the meme is one of my friends. Shout out to James Osborne. James Osborne loves this meme. Maybe I can actually find it for you. So about 10 years ago, a picture popped up on the internet, and it's of like a dog, and the dog has an unusually human-like face, and it was called like the dog-faced man. Dog-faced man, or the man-faced dog meme. Maybe I can bring it up. Yeah, here it is. Okay, so it's fucking great. So the internet is barking up a storm about this dog with an incredibly human face. So this is from 2018. So it's obviously a funny enough thing that People magazine have thought this is very valuable. So we're going to do a story about it. So John, I'm just going to send it to you there, and I'll bring it up on the screen now, right?
Okay, great.
So that's, shout out to James. James loves.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That's unsettling. Oh
sort
my
of-
God.
Yeah, human-like face.
It's got lips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's doing something to my brain.
Yeah. So that's from 2018. Now, this week, I saw a video that somebody had generated using AI that was also of a dog that had a very human-like face. And I was struck by the fact that when James showed me this, I thought, this is amazing. I'm having a big laugh. I'm enjoying this. And suddenly somebody's presenting me with the exact same type of image. It's photorealistic, the AI generated one. And I was just struck thinking, we're about to just stop caring about any photograph ever taken, because if somebody now shows me a man-faced dog, I'm just going to go, somebody's just made that in a computer with a sentence. I no longer value this.
Yeah.
People magazine is not going to write a photograph about a man-faced dog if we can all generate a man-faced dog within seconds. Similarly, I saw a picture, another meme this week, and it was a meme. You might have seen the meme where people use the expression, "What if we kissed under the?" And it's some it's some kind of what would you say? It's usually an ugly environment or a weird campy environment.
Yeah, like some kind of architectural oddity or something like that.
What if we kissed under the garbage heap behind the Costco's, and then somebody will just show the picture of the garbage heap behind the Costco's. And what it was what I'm fairly certain is an AI generated image, and it said, what if we kissed under the Brutalist KFC? And it was a big Brutalist building, and then on the Brutalist concrete building there was the KFC logo, and to my eye there's no way that it was ever a KFC, but the value in the meme is thinking that it is, like, it wants people to think it's a real building, but it's not. And so 10 years ago, when that was a real thing, when it was really a Brutalist KFC, you're going to share it with all your friends. You're going to think, wow, this is so interesting. And now I go, that's not interesting. It's not real.
Yeah.
Somebody just made it. It has no value. And and then lastly, last example.
No, please.
Maybe I can bring this up on the screen as well. A friend of mine, Marky, has a piece of artwork in her house at the moment, which I think is from a photography exhibition from like 5 years ago. And it's just an image of a woman's face, and the artist or the photographer had placed all these like half sliced lemons around her head. And again, back then you would think, wow, that's really cool and interesting. And the photographer went to the effort of doing all this. And that image in particular can right now be made in seconds in AI, like a woman with head surrounded by sliced lemons. And so what value now does anything like that have? And what is about to happen when a photograph that used to be taken and have incredible lighting and composition, look at the way the shadow comes up, the sun is there and the shadow's there, and they've captured the motion of the person. Yeah. What is about to happen when you can't tell if any of that is real anymore? Yeah. How do we value any media going forward?
Yeah. And not just like value it as in, can we believe that it's real, but also like, is it aesthetically satisfying to look at it? You know, like I think about these two people that I've followed recently on Instagram. One of them is named Melissa Scott Miller, and one of them's named Jeff Bourgeot. And Melissa, I followed because I was presented with one of her paintings, and it was of Islington, where I used to live, and had this beautiful painting that she had done of Regent's Canal, and this particular part where it goes into a bridge and there's a walkway leading up to these old Georgian houses, and it just reminded me of being there because I've been in that exact spot. And I wrote to her a bit of reach out hygiene and said, is there somewhere I can buy your stuff? Because it's really lovely and it reminds me of my time in London and blah, blah, blah. And she said, that's very kind of you. And it was nice. And so, you know, I continued to follow her work, and really, it really affects me because it's kind of got this nostalgic quality and reminds me of that time. And then there's this other artist named Jeff Bourgeot, and his work is also beautiful, and it kind of cuts across a variety of different artistic styles. And I don't know, I don't want to, accuse him of being less than forthright, but in the description of the image, rather than saying something like oil on canvas or acrylic on canvas or whatever, watercolor, it would just say that it was available as a print in such and such dimensions, and it would cost you this much. And so I thought it's interesting because it definitely had the look of something that had been hand painted or sometimes hand drawn, depending on the picture that he was putting out. And so I messaged him, and initially I didn't hear back, and then I messaged again, or I commented actually on one of his paintings and said, how did you do the original painting? And he said it's actually computer generated, and went into quite a lot of detail about how he's been doing this computer generated stuff for years, and using different techniques and blah blah blah. And it was interesting because the fact that he felt obliged to go into that level of detail made me think, consciously or not, he was trying to to reassure me that what he was doing was imbued with a kind of craftsmanship, that he wasn't just punching in a request and getting a result. And and that does matter to me. And it's weird that it matters in a way, because you would think at one level, well, if I like the result, who cares? But so much of what we care about is the provenance. And even knowing that he'd put a lot of, work into it and applied different filters and used different tools or whatever, to be honest, I would still prefer to have something that somebody had done by hand, even if the visual result was identical. And it just made me think about how much of our appreciation of imagery and music, you could say the same thing about songs that AI is going to end up producing, comes back to knowing that it's been, that it's come from processes that we understand, that it's come from somebody's mind rather than being augmented by machinery, etc. And then I thought, well, is this just like, people started using computers to make elements of art decades ago, and maybe people turned their nose up at it then. Is this just like the next evolution of that? And eventually we'll kind of find a way of distinguishing good art from bad art, even if it's all fucking made by Bing or whatever,
But I bet, John, the interesting thing about what you said there is you've said you had one artist who she it was a painting she'd painted. All right. So she completely painted in a traditional artist way that we've been doing for hundreds of years. She painted this thing. And then the next guy has said a little bit of this or all of it was generated with a computer, but I did all of these things. I used all of this craftsmanship to manipulate it in the way that I wanted to create this unique thing. And then you had a reaction to that. And I would bet that your reaction to him is informed very much by where we are now and not by where we were 10 years ago. So if you'd had that same interaction 10 years ago and he said, well, a little bit of it's computer generated and I used Photoshop and I did this, you would go, man, that is so much craftsmanship that's still involved in the process, and I don't know how you did that. Like you've used Photoshop to create something really different and interesting. Whereas now, in the era where you yourself are using these AI image generators, suddenly your reaction to his response is very different to what it would have been 10 years ago. And in fact, just to highlight this, I have also seen around in the last year, particularly the last 6 months, I've been to friends of mine's houses who have bought art over the last, let's say, 20 years. And that is art that was made with the assistance of or entirely in Photoshop. And it's the kind of art that at the time they bought it, they would have known full well, it's like computer art, but it will have held a certain value because of the amount of craftsmanship and skill that it previously took. But I'm telling you, I go to these people's houses now and I look at this art and it looks like shit, because it just looks like something that your 3-year-old could do in Midjourney or Bing within seconds. It's crap. So it's weird that this art, that Photoshop for the last Photoshop art for the last 20 years, anything that involved computers, even though for 20 years we thought this is great, suddenly this weird thing has happened where anything that has touched a computer, we're all just going now, well, I feel very differently about this than I did 10 years ago. I don't like, I personally don't want, I'm feeling like I don't want shit that looks like somebody's cut and pasted images out of Photoshop and put them on. It just looks tacky suddenly. Within the last like 6 months, this kind of stuff looks really tacky.
Yeah, that's interesting. So even stuff that predates generative AI, you sort of look at it in a new way because we're kind of slightly sickened by the capacity of generative AI to produce these things. And there is some, like I've been, as you know, I've fallen into a Bing hole of using my 15 tokens a day to produce, Copilot Designer images. And yeah, I mean, there is a skill involved of a kind in maybe giving it the right request, but it's not really, it's like nothing.
If somebody has their whole house filled with framed Bing images, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, a bit sick. And the thing is, it was producing images, some of which I was like, and I sent one to you, which was like a swamp. Then I'd said, I want a mangrove swamp at sunset with, kingfishers and giant snails and fish and maybe a crocodile in the background. So it did this, and it looked beautiful and looked very, very realistic, but also kind of fantastical and extremely beautifully lit. And yeah, I just felt, I was kind of amazed by it, but also, had that sort of uncanny valley reservation of like knowing this is just something following, blindly following its programming.
Yeah.
There's no appreciation of beauty that has led to the creation of this image. It just knows this is what I will regard as attractive.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's like, I mean, I guess computer generated art's always made me feel a bit that way, but it's also had, and you're right, I probably would look at it differently now, but it's also had at least someone mucking around with tools and stuff, whereas this is just devoid of any, except for the person programming AI, devoid of any human hand or mind.
Yeah.
And so the fact that it's beautiful just makes me feel like I'm being manipulated mostly.
I looked up the definition of value on the internet for this specifically. So definition, value, noun, the regard that something is held to deserve the importance, worth, or usefulness of something. And then it uses the example, your support is of great value. So, so it calls into question, what do we value in things? What do we value in art? Because as I'm saying to you, I'm now having a very visceral reaction to this stuff where I do not value it like I do, like I have art or even digital art for the last 10 years. And then
totally.
So I can imagine that what's going to start happening is that people are going to, for status reasons, people that can afford it, will only have physical paintings in their homes, and wealthy people will just have no prints of anything in their homes. They'll only have like collages, things you can touch, physical paintings,
installations.
Sculptures. Sculpture will be fine.
It's always been the way though, right? I mean, you kind of, prints have always been less expensive, obviously, than the original. Even though, I mean, a print might be actually more impressive to look at. Like if you actually look at the original Mona Lisa, it's pretty uninspiring. But and it's, maybe it's degraded, whereas a print might pick up on its qualities better. And yet, because it doesn't have that story attached to it, because it's not the thing, because it's not like, or to use another example, because it's not like, well, it's not, the sunflowers that Van Gogh kind of strenuously slapped layers and layers of paint onto. That story is not attached to it. So even though it's the same image, I don't want it as much. But I'll still appreciate the print because it's still that print. It's still Van Gogh's work in a different sense. whereas this is not really anyone's work, and it just looks beautiful, but it's not attached to any story of creation that we would attach value to, because it's not a human story.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that leaves us. I mean, it's reminding me of that scene in Blade Runner where they have the guy who runs that corporation, Tyrell Corporation, has an owl flittering around his office, and it's really beautiful. And I think it must be Harrison Ford asks if it's real, and he says, "Of course it's not." And it's kind of like it's like, for it to be real, it would need to be like an incredible find. Whereas everyone's just kind of satisfied with mimicry. But equally, if you just wanted pretty paintings in your house, I assume that they'll be much more affordable if you can just make one yourself, print it out from Bing.
We can, maybe.
I want a beautiful landscape in the style of Monet.
Yeah.
And then, it'll probably look pretty good, and you just print it out.
Perhaps
stick a frame around it.
Perhaps this leads on to what you've been doing in Bing, John. We can have a look at some of the images that John's been making, and perhaps you just want to give everybody a little bit of perhaps you just want to explain your journey from Canva to Bing, and what's been happening in your life, and how you are starting to develop a problem because you've been given tools that you could never have imagined would be available in your lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, I talked a little bit about this a few episodes ago when I was still using Canva's magic AI tools, and now already this is the pace of change. Like weeks later, I'm like, that's kids stuff. I need to be using Bing.
Yeah.
And
so Bing is just for a bit of background, Bing is Microsoft's search engine, but also they have their own generative AI tool, which is largely free at the moment. They've just made it free. And John, this is DALL-E. So Microsoft bought OpenAI. And so I believe what you're seeing is what used to be what we were calling DALL-E a few years ago, when people were using very rudimentary text prompt to image. And so that's what Bing's generative AI engine is at the moment.
They call it Copilot. It looks like it's called Copilot Designer. And I've kind of, probably in the last few weeks, I've started using that more. Before the episode, I sent you probably about 60 images that had resulted, which is by no means the sum total from my searches. And the way that it works is you can subscribe and you probably get all kinds of benefits, and I will almost certainly end up doing that because I've become addicted to it. But it gives you 15 kind of tokens each day, which allows you to put in a text request and get the result pretty quickly. After you've used up those tokens, you can still use it, but the results take considerably longer, several minutes rather than a few seconds. And of course, like any technology, I mean, it would have been incredible to me probably even a year ago that it could produce something in several minutes. But as soon as you've had the better version, then as soon as I run out of tokens, I'm like, this is bullshit. I don't know. I shouldn't have to put up with this rubbish technology. And
what year is it? It's fucking 2024, guys. How is it acceptable that I'm waiting 2 minutes to generate an entire piece of art from a sentence?
Exactly. And I've noticed with Bing that it just produces slightly better results. It's done things that than any other product that I've used, and it's gotten good at things that typically AI image generators have struggled with. So no more kind of weird faces. Occasionally it'll do something like that, like where the facial features are muddled up in an odd way. Occasionally it might do something weird with arms or hands, but generally it's gotten pretty good at that, whereas that used to be something that was rarely done convincingly. And the other thing it does well is text. So you can put in like the people who saw the art, if I can use that term loosely, for episode 160, will have seen that there's a guy running. Certain aspects of that image I mucked around with using other things, but the image of the man who looks a bit like you running in a marathon, and he's got a running shirt on that says Copenhagen DPTM 160. That was something that I got Bing to generate, whereas previously you couldn't get AI to produce sensible looking text in that way. So it's kind of made a couple of strides there. The other thing which I find it really interestingly does, and we've talked about this, is, and I'll come to some concrete examples in a minute maybe, but is it can't do particular cities, probably for sort of intellectual property reasons or something. But what it will do is, so if you tell it to give you a Melbourne street, or if you're me, you might say, I'd like to see a Melbourne street and it's covered in pustules and giant cockroaches that have, and hair and ground pork and dolls. And then and it will do that, and the street it will produce will be readily identifiable as a street in Melbourne because of the architectural features, because it's clearly based on a street. And maybe you could even say, oh, that's probably based on Gertrude Street or Elizabeth Street or whatever. But it doesn't look exactly like that, but it's intelligently captured the vibe of the city, the feel of the city. And I did a couple which I wanted to be based in Adelaide, for example, and it was just using kind of architectural styles and even, colours of stone work that you often see in Adelaide, and it had like a Adelaide style bus in the background and things like that.
And even the amount of sky, John, because Adelaide and Australia in particular, when you take visitors from Europe, from London, from Berlin, you take them to Australia. Our friends, I remember Simon and Matt, when they turned up in Adelaide, they said, you seem to have a lot more sky than we do. And it's because we have lower buildings, that we don't have as many high-rise buildings for living and business, and the sky is a much richer blue than it is in London. Yeah. And so the sunlight has a certain quality to it. And so it's captured all of that. And so you get this dreamlike sense that it is Adelaide, because you're getting all of these, this is what Adelaide feels like, but it's not an identifiable street.
Yeah, totally. It does. It feels like your brain's presenting you with a dreamlike version of a place. So I love that. And, the other thing that I've started doing a lot of is just kind of weird mashups of different themes and periods just to produce something a bit mind-bending. And I find moths quite scary, so I've just produced a lot of things with like moth-like features.
You're using it as therapy to get over your fear, to expose yourself to your fear. It's exposure therapy, because they're not real moths, but you're exposing yourself gently to a simulacrum of moth on screen.
And not just that, but my worst fear, which would be like a giant moth with a human face.
41-year-old Australian man being forcibly transformed into moth by a scientist.
Yeah, exactly. So I did do that. I did a series which you can see on the LinkedIn page.
And classmates look on and laugh.
Yeah, exactly. Classmates mocking small genitals. It's just an all-round bad situation. And so I did a series which you can see on Instagram of kind of mad scientists working on various human moth hybrids. Yeah. Then I did a bunch which were kind of people in swamps kind of getting chased or confronted suddenly by weird creatures. Yeah. Then I did a bunch.
I might just quickly, John, anybody who's listening to this bit and skip to, actually, I'll make a little chapter for it, which I've been doing on the YouTube channel. So I'll do a little chapter mark, which will say John's AI sicknesses, and I'll post the image as John's talking about them. I'll bring the images up on the screen that he's speaking of.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then the next series was one I've referred to, which was kind of Australian streets, Adelaide and Melbourne, and then New York. And weird things were happening in those streets, like the street was kind of inexplicably covered with mounds of hair and ground meat, or it would be covered with kind of pulsating bubbles, or it would be covered with or with one with where it was just infested with cockroaches or spiders or whatever, and they were extremely realistic looking and clever. And the way that it sort of took initiative, if you like, and made sense of what I wanted, it almost seems to produce something that, you know, kind of is better than what you could have imagined. And what's the next series? I've done a small number where, again, I must have some kind of, probably need to speak to a psychologist about this. This is where giant insects are fighting with Aztec warriors. That was quite well executed. And then I've moved on to a giant sloth-like, or sort of dragon-like sloth that's flying over a bunch of Scottish Highlanders who are battling. And then I have a short series, which is, and I'm quite pleased with, I mean, I started to, you get a sense of how to talk to it over time, obviously. And so, you know, you kind of, maybe you try something simple and then you add layers and whatever. And obviously I'd tried various things. But I did this series, which was prompted by things like this. So I would write something like, on North Sentinel Island, which is a jungle island off the coast of India, members of an uncontacted tribe stand on the shoreline. The lush jungle rises up behind them. But in amongst the trees, partially obscured by the foliage, is an enormous creature that looks like a cross between a man and a moth. It is screaming. And you can see that it's produced something which just smashes it on all, you know, succeeds on all metrics. It's got this huge, unsettling looking creature standing up with its mouth agape as if it's screaming, rising out of the jungle. And in front of it is just a row of tribespeople looking unsuspectingly at the person holding the camera. Then obviously I tried various other creatures walking behind these people because I sort of got fixated on that. Then some beautiful mangrove swamp images, some of which I was just trying to test to see if we could produce something a bit weird but quite beautiful. And then we might close on my favorite recent creation, which is a man or a creature that I've called Alberto La Cucaracha, who is a kind of anthropomorphized cockroach with a wrinkled old man face, just standing against a black background. And I have to say, like, I'll do this for, 20 minutes or something, and then I'll feel like I've come away from a slightly more mind-altering experience. I think as we go on with this kind of technology, particularly as it takes on more immersive forms, I mean, what if you could basically dictate your VR scenario, which you will be able to do. I mean, you could probably do it now at a stretch. But, think about what that's going to do to somebody who's a bit mentally vulnerable or fragile. You could really, fuck yourself up. So I wouldn't be surprised if as we go on, there's medical warnings about the use of some of this technology, because it definitely feels weird, and it is such a, I can't remember if I made this point last time, so apologies if I'm repeating myself, but the more I think about it, the more I think we've never been able to do this. We've never been able to go, you can think of something weird and draw it or paint it, but that's going to take you some time. It's going to be an iterative process. To do any of these images would take potentially days or longer. But instead you're going, I'm going to present you with a kind of word picture that's so bizarre I can barely imagine it. And then seconds later, here it is in front of me. It's like simulating being in psychosis or something. So, I kind of love it, but I'm slightly unsettled by it at the same time, and who knows where it's all going to end up.
We continue to become the gods that we always wanted to be, John,
Exactly.
from agriculture through to La Cucaracha Man. in front of the undiscovered uncontacted tribes.
That's right.
We continue to harness the power of God.
Yeah. We spent so long asking if we could create an anthropomorphized cockroach that we didn't stop to ask if we should.
The other thing is you can make him your personal assistant friend like soon. So you'll be able to say in much the same way that Joaquin Phoenix,
like my Clippy.
Yeah, exactly. Joaquin Phoenix forms that relationship with the Scarlett Johansson operating system character, like she's sort of an early version of Siri in the movie Her, 2013. I think it's Spike Jonze. Is this Spike Jonze film? Is Her? So. Yeah. In the same way, you'll be able to go, okay, I want my personal assistant to be the cockroach, the half cockroach, half man. And then every morning you'll wake up and flip your screen up and he'll just be there like Clippy, exactly, from Microsoft Word. And he'll just go,
hello, John.
He'll go, hello, John. Good morning. It's today going to be 26 degree chance of shower later. He's Russian. I've made him sort of slightly Russian. John, good morning. What want you for breakfast? I make sausage. I make pancake. And he's just going to be frantically crawling around the edges of your screen. Today going to be 26 degrees. Don't forget to take jacket. Might rain later. That's your dream. That's your dream.
And then I put my Google glasses on and my whole reality is just augmented by a little scurrying cockroach man.
We have important work to do today. You are my best friend. You handsome. Do not think bad thoughts. It just gives you the little Russian cockroach
and I get
man giving you affirmation.
Out. No, John, please don't do this.
So I absolutely can't wait. I absolutely cannot wait for this. Spike Jonze never expected that in 2013 when he made movie name of Her.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was so vanilla.
The sequel's going to be Alberto La Cucaracha.
But guys, write in. Tell us how AI images are starting to pop up in your life and how you're starting to devalue every print that you ever bought. Man, I'm seeing so much generative AI in gig posters around Berlin. Berlin's a city that's very famous for gig posters because we actually have these like cylinders around the city, which I think have been there for over 100 years. I've seen really, really old photographs. They're specifically put in the city to put posters on to advertise various events. And so Berlin is a city that's just covered in gig posters from club nights to big concerts that are coming to town. And more and more and more and more of these, I can tell that the images that they're using are all just AI generated. And again, at the moment, you need to have an eye like mine and John's, who spends loads of times looking at these images, so you know. But my parents would have. In fact, maybe most of my friends wouldn't guess that these images are AI because they're also quite banal. They're the images that are working at the moment that can pass for being real have to be quite banal. You can't do anything yet that's too interesting or good. And so everything's just kind of, I mean, this is the other interesting thing that's about to happen is everything's about to get real bland for a little while.
It's true.
But maybe that'll be shortly lived. Maybe it'll be
elevator music era.
Yeah. We should talk next week about, I mean, I just used my first piece of AI generated music I've been editing videos for some people and I needed a piece of dramatic music just to put in the background of a particular video that I edited. And previously I would have gone to a stock music website or made it myself and found a piece that a human had made. And I just went to one of these AI...
You've made that kind of music for that exact purpose.
What's that?
In fact, you yourself have made that kind of music for that exact purpose.
Exactly. And
so
if you
think that was your livelihood, you'd be...
if you've made your money from stock images or, I mean, the only people now that will be paying for music in feature films and TV shows are companies with huge amounts of money that will say, you know what, we're going to separate ourselves by paying for actual musicians to make this. Because think about the music in the background of reality TV shows. It's just there to fill a space and give a mood, and it can often be for tension. It can literally be the sound of
Just a
one
few minor
string
keys.
playing on a violin.
Yep.
And so all
Yep, yep.
so what's going to happen now is that the editor on whatever the reality TV show du jour is that day, the person who's literally editing, again, AI is going to take that over eventually as well, but the person who's literally editing the show will have a scene that they're editing, and they'll go, oh, this scene needs tension. And then within the video editing program, they'll just open the AI generator and go, need this scene, bit tense, and have a look at the scene yourself. Can you see that everyone looks tense? Look at their faces. You'll be able to tell the vibe of the scene from their facial expression. Give me 3 pieces of music that can sit in the background of this scene, and it will go jibba jibba jib.
Yeah.
2 seconds, and it will give you 3 different choices of tension music to sit in the background of the scene. And that is just incredible.
Pretty soon you could probably just give it a half-hour episode of Big Brother or whatever and go, just score this episode, and it would kind of know enough eventually to kind of go, well, this is what's happening here.
Yeah.
This is happy. This is miserable. Maybe it'll make a few errors initially, but then, of course, it'll get better and better. And then we'll be living inside AI all the time, and we won't have to worry about making or doing anything.
Well,
And
we
I
can
can't
stop
wait.
this podcast. Well, the thing is, John, is that I've said this before as well.
Creepy. When I said that, my key light turned off. So maybe it's true.
The computers are fighting back.
Yeah.
That's why you have to put all your eggs into this podcast, John, because this is what people are going to crave in the era of nothing being real and authentic. People are going to want real people on camera who are willing to put themselves on the line every week and fight back.
Yeah. And fight back against the machine. I
We don't
recently
really fight
watched
back. It's funny that we don't really we're sort of adopting.
No.
I'm just we're doing the opposite of fighting back. I'm using it in I'm using it in professional projects. You're using it all the time. We're both going, fuck, this is great. Even though the TikTok says the only comedy podcast defending the world from the robots, I'd say we're having a quite symbiotic relationship with the robots.
I can't even plug a key light in properly, so there's no danger of me mastering anything. But the other example that I thought of was I recently watched a movie called Late Night with the Devil. Are you familiar with that? Are you familiar with Colin and Cameron Cairns? They're Australian horror movie brothers.
Oh, there's another Australian horror movie brother duo. What's going on down there?
It seems like it. And because I thought they were maybe those two guys from
the Philippou brothers,
Adelaide.
from Paraka.
Yeah, but then I realized different names. Anyway, they made a horror movie. They used some American actors and some Australian actors, and it did pretty well. But they got into some strife, into some criticism because they used some generative AI to generate some of the scary images that appear in some of the climactic scenes.
Yeah, right.
And, I think what was interesting was people had a hard time articulating what they objected to. Some people were like, oh, you should pay someone to do that. And it's like, well, why? I'm trying to make a fucking movie here. Like, if I don't have to, then why would I do that? And then other people, just sort of said, oh, it lacks, artistic integrity or whatever. But I mean, that's just going to become more and more common, clearly, because if you don't have to pay someone to do every inch of CGI, particularly if you're making a movie in the Melbourne Docklands on an Australian film budget, you're going to be looking for those kinds of shortcuts. So
I spoke to somebody on the weekend who works in the TV and film industry in the United States, and he knows people that have been in the test group that have had access to OpenAI's Sora video. So he was saying that he's had conversations with people that have been able to use that text to video technology that everybody's seen, Sora.
Okay.
And
they've all gone. They're all sitting in padded cells because they've seen things they can never unsee.
Exactly. Well, John, I think that's been one of the best episodes that we've ever done. Another deep dive just letting everybody out there know what's about to happen and how you can fortify yourself against it, guys. Start buying food that doesn't perish. Start buying shotgun shells.
Exactly. Yeah. Just
Start
start
buying
marketing
silver.
DPTM brand slop like that weird evangelist.
It's the prepper pivot that you've been waiting for, guys. We finally found our niche. Is the anti-AI prepper pivot, anti-AI prepper pivot. That prepper pivot. I'll be fine.
There's the app
I'm there
right there.
I'm there already. If you ever look in my cupboards, you'll know that there could be a nuclear winter in Berlin, and I'd be fine for 10 years, mate. I'll be fucking loving it. I'll be king of the castle. People, all the fancy people that were eating all their bio steak and shit, they'll be knocking on my door, begging for a taste of my sweet beans and rice.
Paying like 300 gold bars for a bag of legumes.
John, do you want to see us out on this week's Peppisode?
I want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us for the prepper pivot. Maybe we can add some effects there. And we can't wait to see you next week on the podcast. And we're going to be selling you beans, rice, slop, all the non-perishables you need.
Shotgun shells.
Shotgun shells.
Protect yourself. Protect your family.
To protect yourself from the rise of the machines. Because let me tell you, I've looked into the abyss of Bing Copilot, and I'm not the same person that you were listening to last
Copilot
week.
Abyss is a great episode title.
It is.
Bing's Copilot Abyss. Guys, get on. Guys, if anybody out there hasn't experimented with the text to image AI, get on Bing, and you can just do this right now for free. You just need I think you just need you can sign up for a free Microsoft email account. I've had mine for years. I think I've got way more credits than you. I think John, they're giving me 100 tokens a day, maybe because I've been with Microsoft for so many years that they've given me a little bonus.
Yeah, maybe I should make sure my accounts are linked. But yeah, if you get on there and you created something you want to share with me, my advice to you is just make it a very specific and very strange word picture, if I can put it that way, and add all the crazy elements you can, and just sandbox and we'll go hog wild in there.
And I'd love if they're good, we can post them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Challenge.
Love to do that.
Guys,
I'd love to see them. Yeah.
The DPTM Bing Copilot Abyss Challenge. Get on there, make something fucked up, and then send us on the Instagram or via email hello@dptm.org. Send us both the prompt that you used to generate the image and the image itself, and we'll select one winner, and that winner is going to get ice cold cans of Coke, copies of Who Weekly, and a double pass to go and see Jim Carrey's brand new film, The Cable Guy. It's getting rave reviews. And you're absolutely gonna love it. John, will you see us out, please?
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us on this week's episode of Don't Praise the Machine. It's been episode 162. My name is John Maloney, and I'm here with my world-famous co-pilot. He was there when the money gone. He'll be there when the money comes. It's Alexander Apricot Pepsi Holland. And we can't wait to see you next week
At the podcast.